Hey everyone, I wanted to go over the new and exciting news that we have for Tactics Ogre Reborn, which is set to release onto the Nintendo Switch on November 11th. And today what we're going to be checking out is a specific section of a brand new developer interview that we got directly from IGN. I'm going to be leaving a link in the description for that, where the developers essentially break down why they decided to make some of the changes and the addition to some of the brand new set of features that the game is set to provide. Remember that fast battle, more animations, the changes to specifically encounters, the changes to class leveling up, and many different things is something that the game is going to be able to see, and players from basically the classic releases are going to have some time adjusting to this. Some may like it, some may not. So the developers decided to provide us to some details as to why they decided to make some of these changes going forward. If you didn't necessarily check out, I also put out a developer interview where they discussed their intentions or lack thereof to make this an HD 2D game. So I'm going to be leaving a link in the description for that if you're interested in that specific developer interview. So as far as for this one goes, IGN simply asked multiple questions. We're going to be going over about 4 of them. And the first one reads as follows. There's many gameplay changes to this one game. Maybe let's talk about that a little bit. With this version, will there be online multiplayer? Hiroaki Kato replies, no, there's going to be no online content, but in a sense, we are kind of preparing the game so it's almost in a way like a solo or play MMO. Not in the way that the game plays, but in the fact that there's lots of end content that you can enjoy. For example, we put tons of efforts into making this character growth or leveling in those systems, something that you can easily sink your teeth into for a very long time. And that pretty much leads to the character leveling up options, which they asked as follows. Why did you change the way characters level up? Hiroaki Kato replies, in the PSP version you managed to level up by classes. For example, archers are level 12, knights are level 11, that sort of thing. But in the newest version you're managing levels by unit. The reason why we did that was twofold. The first is because you're managing by unit. You can really feel and customize the unit and make them your very own and get really connected with them in that way. And I think that's a really fun mechanic to have. The second reason was initially in the SNES version, that was kind of how things were managed. So I wanted to bring back to its roots a little bit. I don't necessarily agree with this change at all. I think a lot of people would find it a little bit too much grinding, unnecessary grinding, if you will, that you kind of have to level up units standalone. That should be toggleable. This is something that like Pokemon fans will continually complain about regarding like EXP share, for example, where you don't necessarily want all your Pokemons to level up, but you want only some of them to level up. So this is one of like kind of those things. You make it toggleable, so if you want to have that experience of like every character that kind of levels up, all the classes unlock at the same time, good, you chose to opt in. If you don't want that, you simply toggle that off and you don't have to deal with that at all. I think ultimately if you are like min-maxing and you're trying to find the best character and you don't know which ones you want to level up, this is going to provide players with just a lot of unnecessary grinding that you may not be necessarily too fond of. And the third question they ask, what was the overall goals taken together with all of these gameplay changes for Tactics Ogre Reborn? The response is, I think probably the major goal that we had for the changes in the battle design system was to support of the story. So the Tactics Ogre, the story is really important to the game. By adding all these little elements, we're able to link them with the battles and with the story itself. And it's kind of embedded together so that you can feel lots of emotion and excitement while you're playing through these stories. So that's kind of like the overall goal, if that answers your question, and that's, you know, all well and good. Ultimately, you kind of want to have a story that kind of like reflects what it is that you're doing combat-wise. Something that like Nintendo Chronicles, this is a game that I spoke about in the last video where I was speaking about Tactics Ogre Reborn. Nintendo Chronicles, for example, feels extremely disjointed. At 1 second you're having a conversation about a specific encounter, and next thing you know you're doing another encounter that almost has nothing to do with the thing that the characters were like really hyping up in a moment that it was supposed to be leading up to. So, you know, this game trying to like unite the combat and the scenario that you're seeing with the story is a good way to go. In the last question, one of the second to last questions, reads as follows. The character classes were also getting some changes. What would you say in the class that has been most heavily balanced as to why? The response is, I can't say if we changed any one of them the most. We went in and we kind of adjusted everything, like all the skills all the equipment that they can use. The entire breadth of the game is being tweaked and edited and changed. Whether or not player wants to use mages or knights or archers, we've done our best to ensure that there's a nice balance so that players can choose which characters and classes they can like and have a fun time. And that's all well and good. Again, it's kind of like the previously mentioned story changes. You want every class to be viable. You certainly want every character to be viable to some degree. Even they mention equipment in that regard. So you certainly want that. Whether you actually achieve that as a developer, that is a hard thing to do. So this is an old game. I'm sure there's been thousands upon thousands of hours of gameplay posted online, discussions had in forums and stuff. So they pretty much have a really good base on what they needed to tweak, what they needed to change, and hopefully fans can enjoy some of those changes. Now, in the last question they simply asked, something that people notice with the graphic styles is that the sprite art is very smooth. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how that came to be. The response is, initially, we remade the pixel art. We were thinking about how to show it on a new modern technology with high resolution screens. That was the main goal, to show off the power and the beauty of the original pixel art in modern technology without them looking terrible. If you just look, for example, as the SNES or the PSP graphics, as they were threw them up on high resolution modern monitors, they would look kind of like mosaic. You're unable to make out everything. We really did our best to make sure that the new artwork on our new monitors and new technology would be displayed nicely. We put tons of really small pixels and really small dots to achieve that effect. The thing is that we designed the most modern monitors that people would be using, but if you're seeing them on a small screen or maybe the trailer, it could look a little bit strangely and smooth. But I think if you played it on your home console or standard monitor, it would not feel any oddness in the movement and it would seem alright. I mean, we could make it as smooth as we wanted to, but we could have spent lots of hours and make it extremely smooth and nice, but we wanted to make sure that it retained the original feel and style. We're constantly looking at the original and comparing it to the new version and checking back and forth to see and make sure that the new art that we're making still remains to the qualities of the old. And I'm interested that they mention specifically if we're playing it on the handheld, because of course that iterates on the Nintendo Switch, and presumably this game is going to look extremely good on the OLED. Obviously it will still look on the Lite and the original Switch as well, but the OLED certainly is going to stand out. The fact that this game is of course going to be on PC as well, I think it is on Steam, or is going to be on Steam. Steam Deck players are also going to be able to check this out. So, while the Steam Deck's display is not necessarily as good as the OLED Switch, it's still going to be really nice to have that option as well. So I'm glad that they're looking into that. But of course, like they did mention in the trailers, it does look rather smooth. It does seem to have some sort of straight, cleaned up edges. But hopefully that's not going to be an option. Hopefully that's not going to be a problem, I should say, as you're playing the game. It would have been nice to add a couple of filters here and there. Maybe that would have been something that they could have considered. But of course, they didn't necessarily go the extra step. But that's about all the information that I have for you guys today. I found this developer interview rather interesting. They decided to answer 5 specific questions talking about some of the new features being added into Tactics Ogre Reborn, set to release early next month. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.